Hi everybody, welcome back to the Life's Good. I think it's safe to say we can say a warm welcome back to the Life's Good. We've had some lovely weather the last few days, and as we Brits like to discuss the weather, I think it's safe to say that we've had one of the driest Aprils I can ever remember. I was listening to a report on the radio the other day, and they were saying that we've had less than a fifth, I think they said less than a fifth of the normal rainfall for April. Now I don't know what you have experienced in your area. Be interesting to know if this is countrywide, but since all that cold weather we had not long back, in fact during March, we had it very cold up here, and we had snow and frost on the ground for many days, and it's only a few weeks ago that ceased to be and the weather warmed up. Now although we had the snow and the frost, we didn't get rain, and since the weather's warmed up we have not had any rainfall at all here. I think we had a couple of really minor showers, but nothing significant. My ground is very dry, and you'll see in a minute when we nip down to the plot, I've had to employ the use of my sprinkler to water everything on the ground down there because it was so dry. More of that in a minute. I'm in the process of planting out this new plant. Cheryl's acquired this new Camellia Japonica. It's similar to the red camellia that we've got the other side of the lawn there, but it's a white variety, and when she purchased it, it did actually have a couple of blooms on, and they looked absolutely gorgeous. And we've chosen to pop it in this spot here. Now I'm not sure if you remember, in this corner we had a fuchsia, but it had gone really woody, overgrown, and didn't really look pleasant enough for what we wanted in the corner. So yesterday I set about removing that and tidying up this little corner, and in fact in so doing I've exposed these rather lovely hellebores. They're absolutely gorgeous. Hellebores are a bit of a shy plant because they always let their heads face the floor. They're always facing downwards, so you don't actually see the bloom until you lift them up and have a little peep inside. And these are absolutely gorgeous. Definitely a sign of spring with those in bloom. And my Wollemi Pine stood here. This has been here for quite a few years, but this is actually a prehistoric plant. They thought these were extinct, and they found several growing in a gully, in a gorge in Australia. Now these were on the earth at the time the dinosaurs were on the earth. The guys that found those were able to remove some seeds or propagate them in some way. My daughter purchased this one. It comes with a certificate of authenticity, and it is representative of a prehistoric plant. It's called a Wollemi Pine, and it's an unusual shape and design, but has several aspects to its growing season, where you get sort of a cone shape grows on the end and then produces a red bloom on it, and then later that becomes a spiky cone, and it has these little flower clusters on the ends of the leaves. It's quite an unusual plant. I'll see if I can get some more information on it and maybe let you know a bit more about my Wollemi Pine. Right, back to the camellia. I'm making a hole here. When you're putting a plant like this, you can see the size of the pot I've got. When you're putting one of these in the ground, you want to make the hole at least as big as the pot, and you can use that as a guide. You just pop it in. You can see that actually fits in that hole quite nicely now. So what I'm going to do is just clean the bottom out of that hole, and I will water the hole first before I put the plant in to get some moisture underneath. to give it a bit of a head start really. So I've got my can here. There's a reasonable amount of water in the bottom. I wouldn't like to say exactly how much, but I tend to put about 1/3 to 1/2 a can in the bottom of a hole like this. As I said, the soil is extremely dry, and directly under here it's solid clay. Doesn't afford much drainage, unfortunately. I've replaced this topsoil several times to try and improve that situation. You can see the water's just sitting there. It won't drain, straight in. Now that will sit in there. Now I'm going to take this out very carefully. Remove it. You can see, look at the roots on there. It's absolutely pot bound. It's solid in there. Was desperate to go in the ground. This will flower next year. Now it is a spring flowering shrub. Just going to rest that in the bottom of the hole and start to backfill with this soil. Sometimes if the soil is really bad, I will backfill with a multi-purpose compost or something similar, which gives it a bit more or it helps it to produce roots through that rather than solid, stony, clay-like soil. But that's in the ground there. I've got it in the hole fairly well. What I do, once I've planted these, what I do is I put my boot around the bottom just to firm it down in, make sure that everything's in contact with soil, and then just tidy up the area around. I've already watered it underneath, but this evening, once the sun's gone off, I'll come back out and probably put another 1/2 a canful of water around this. 1/3 to 1/2 a watering can. That's quite a large watering can, that one. But another splash of water to get it well underway. And this is going to look lovely in this corner. It will grow to about 4 or 5 feet tall. It has a spread of about 3 to 4 feet, so it's going to fill this corner quite well. Hopefully it won't hide the hellebores too much, but I could always move those if I wanted. I'll just bring you in close and let you have a look at the flowers on these hellebores. Just look at these. Aren't they gorgeous? As I said, they're very shy. They always face downwards, but if you lift them, underneath they got these lovely pale pink edged flowers. Absolutely wonderful. And as I said, a definite sign of spring when these are in bloom. This is a close-up of my Wollemi Pine. I did in fact pronounce it wrong a moment ago. If I lift this leaflet up for you, you should be able to see the Wollemi Pine on there. That's the name of it. And as it says in this leaflet, the discovery of the Wollemi Pine is the equivalent of finding a small dinosaur still alive on Earth. Now apparently the Wollemi existed up to 200 million years ago. Don't know if you can imagine that a length of time, but 200 million years ago these plants were growing on Earth. Now they were thought extinct with only fossil records remaining to show what they were. But in 1994, just under 100 were discovered in a deep canyon in the vast expanse of the Wollemi National Park in Australia. It's now the focus of a unique global conservation effort to give everyone the chance to grow their own tree. This obviously will help to protect the future of this potentially rare and endangered plant. I've had mine growing in the garden here for quite a few years now. If you look closely, up on the left here, you can see this sort of cone shaped part. Now this forms on the end of these stems with these spiky leaves on. This forms and later on will be a pinky red colour. And if you look inside between the leaves here, this part, that I'm just touching here is very, very spiky, and it looks a bit like a fir cone, but with extremely spiky leaves on there. And if you look on the ends of these fronds, if you like to call them that, there's a little flower head forming there that will eventually become one of these little cone-shaped fruits, cones, not sure what you would call these. But the whole thing is actually a tree. Originally they were a huge tree growing on Earth, and they were prevalent on what is now the continent of Australia when it was part of Antarctica before it split off. So this is quite a rare plant. I've never seen one like it before. As I said, my daughter purchased it for me. We've had it since, and it seems to thrive in this corner in the northeast of England, and hopefully will last for quite a few years to come. I understand that originally these grew to about 80 feet, 85 feet, which would be rather too large for this garden, but we'll keep an eye on it and see how it progresses. But that is my Wollemi Pine. Well, I did say earlier that as a result of not having any rainfall, I've had to employ the little sprinkler to wet this ground. I've been putting it on in the evenings the last 3 or 4 nights, just for about 10 or 12 minutes or so, just to wet the surface. I've got carrot seed sown in here, I've got parsnip seed here, and the broad beans and shallots benefit from a bit of moisture. It's unusual that we've not had anything like the normal amount of rain, but looking back over previous years, we seem to be getting these warm spells, sort of April, May time, but then June, July and August have been pretty wet, so be interesting to see how this year pans out and whether in fact we get a wet summer again. Just remember, you heard it from AJ first. We'll wait and see. Well, I've got a few other things to do. Before I do, I wanted to show you the little area in front of the greenhouse. I made that little raised, what I call my salad bed down there, and I just wanted to show you a couple of things on there before we go today. If you look carefully on this small plot that's it's directly in front of the greenhouse and behind my shed, but along this edge here I used some of that taped seed of radish. I popped that in. It's a length of, looks like a sort of a papery tape, and it's got the seeds attached to it at intervals. They're about 1 inch apart on this one. I put that in the ground, covered it slightly, and they have germinated, and I've got a row of radishes coming on already. I'm very pleased with that. Next to it, those are lettuces. Now, I sowed those in the greenhouse earlier on in the season. They were getting to the point where they needed to be put out. I did that, but I nearly got caught out because we had a very, very cold night that night. Temperature got down to almost 0. I looked at them. A few leaves have been tainted by the frost, but most of these now, as you can see, are standing. So I'm pleased that they should come on and produce a bit of lettuce for us. Well, I've also got a couple of rows here. I've got some, let me think what I put in here. Another tape seed of lettuce there, and some spring onions further over. So things coming on there in my salad bed. I was just checking the pond this morning, and I've noticed that the lily, which is planted in the container at that end, has started to produce some shoots. So hopefully we'll get a nice little spread of lily on the pond this year. It was a new plant last year, so maybe it'll be a bit more prolific this year. The fish are doing well. We've got 3 shabunkin in here. But this is such a relaxing area of the garden, just to come here and sit and listen to the water, watch the fish, and indeed see some of the flowers that we've got growing here. This is a wonderful spot to sit and relax. I'm thinking of popping some sort of a seat in this area little bench or something to perch on next to the pond, which would be rather nice. Well, I've got a few more things to do, as always. There's always something to do in the garden. I had a little sign here somewhere. I can't, oh, it's over here next to the pond. It says that a garden is a thing of beauty, but a job forever. That's about right. There's always something to do when you've got a garden. Well, wherever you are, if the sun is shining, enjoy the warm spring weather. Look after each other. You be safe, be happy. Please don't forget, hit the subscribe button, thumbs up, bell, all those things. And we would really like for you to come back and see us again here in the Life's Good. Bye bye, until next time. Ta-da.